right at the gates, it's going to be Green Leaves playing a little bit of the Cyclone coupling comps here. We're seeing a lot of DPS come through. Nova MS, it's going to be a standard 3-2-1 Sombra Goats.
They've leaned on this a little bit before as well, so it's not super unfamiliar for Green Leaves. Nova MS actually going to go ahead and make a swap here.
And the fact they've kind of just changed up the player for the specific Sombra position, and they got to put in, at least for the time being, he was on a Widow, now he's on a Moira as well, so just trying to get this composition right before the cap actually opens, and they do have to fight, but they got to get there fast as Green Leaves are capping.
Yeah, they're on the point. Actually, I think Nova MS just end up giving this away. It's not the end of the world if they can still win this next fight, and they've made the swaps to hopefully be able to do just that.
It's a little slow though, so Green Leaves getting the early edge is going to be very important as the underdog to try and get something done in this particular matchup.
And long rotation, but they're able to get an opening pick, and there has been no answer out from the side of Green Leaves. So there is now, and the pick on Mui is hugely impactful, actually. 10 able to sort of give them the slip there. Still under pressure, probably will still go down here. Actually, no, Eden's kind of, Cloud rather, to the rescue on that respawn after getting picked earlier. Green Leaves is still in possession of the point, by the way.
And Green Leaves now, after a lot of damage being done by 10, is going to be picking up an infra site, so Nova MS attempting to now aggress on top of the point.
This has kind of gone decently for Green Leaves so far. This is going to be the real telling fight, though. If they can clutch this one out, then they're in good standing. But Sonaro already down. Rocket Barrage on the side from Hoshimi gets really very little done. Only finds Nun's mech, and Inen will get finished off. But that's all Green Leaves will walk away from this with. And Nova MS actually flips the point during the fight.
And I think in some ways Green Leaves got out-rotated here, where they're trying to maybe chase down a few members and trying to just run away in various cases, but for Nova MS, they see the point is empty, they aggress on top of that point. Green Leaves are not in a position to really contest well. Sonaro tries to dive on as a Wrecking Ball, gets instantly chipped down, and 10 was basically keeping them alive on the Widowmaker, but a big change up now as they go into their own Sombra Goats, the Moira as well, both teams just playing basically the same thing with Ting on Winston instead.
And I do kind of like this for Green Leaves, but a Ting will get a lot of value earlier on. That's a nice EMP, sound barriers there from Burner. The EMP has now unfortunately achieved nothing. Mui is, on the other hand, far more successful. The follow-up as well is there. Coalescence keeps them in it for a few seconds longer, but it's only a temporary respite. They are going to go down.
And the criticism I'm going to give here is that Green Leaves, if you are Cloud right now, should rather be playing an Ana or a Zen. Playing the Moira here doesn't make nearly as much sense, but for Green Leaves as well, this is going to be a big recharging sort of fight for them. That 43% lead that they did have has all but expired now as Nova MS take that lead 65-43.
That's a nice pickup though. Nova MS got quite far forward on that and end up getting punished as Nuns goes down. Ting nearly went down as well, but he at least gets back to the team. But Green Leaves coming in with some ultimates to spare, and nothing really on the defensive side here for Nova MS. The Grav is allowed to chew through Shylin and Enin. 10 gets the wraparound on Mui, and Green Leaves are actually going to re-grab this point.
I think this is where, okay, Green Leaves are playing a much better composition now. The Ryan that they kept on to is doing wonders versus a Ting who no longer has a Primal. Earth Shatter's up but available. Cloud is landing his abilities as the Ana player. In is now changing onto his own Ana finally, and a Ting will be matching in terms of parity with Scenario, ready to block out that Shatter. So both teams are being quite competitive here, and it's about Nova really leveraging the slight lead that they do have in terms of objective time to get their next ring of ultimates up to try and close out this game.
They probably only have one fight that they could afford to lose for the purposes of charging ultimates, because we are now rounding 70% here. This is taking quite a lot of time.
And that's because they're still making changes. You had Nuns now changing onto the Diva as well. Big hack on Sonaro.
That is a nice EMP though out of 50, and they're able to finish off a Ting. Nuns in trouble. It's actually Burner who goes down next, and seems like it's all over but the crying here for Nova MS. More members going to get finished off, and it's also taking quite a long time here. Already rounding 90%. I don't know if Nova MS are going to have much of a shot.
Well, Mui's going to be in position to at least touch, and he'll be able to extend this a little bit longer. Nova, just after respawning, need to speed on here ASAP. If they can get to the point, force an overtime engagement, they can still win this one, but they have to get there.
The overtime was generated. EMP. Oh, a Ting's already been burned down. Oh, and Mui goes down as he commits the EMP, and that may just be the beginning of the end. Nice sleep onto Burner. They don't quite get the quick finish off from that, but Sonaro slept. There is still a window in here for Nova MS. The grab does come out, though, from 10. They're able to finish off Nuns in among it. Shaolin desperately trying to do what he can, but with the sound barrier from Xerathi, I don't think Nova MS can really get much more done in this fight. They will certainly try their darndest, but Greenleaves have a bit of a lid on these respawners.
Greenleaves are taking a while to clean this up so far, and the overtime should be ticking down very quickly if anyone steps up the point. And for Nova, a team needed to live. He needs to build up this Earth Shatter. And he's just been bullied around during this overtime phase, and I think the timing for how the reapproach happened was definitely the nail in the coffin. You saw around the 70% mark. Okay, we noted probably if they lose here, we're going to be in a space where there just isn't enough time to properly contest, but that's basically what happened. 50 here is going to have, this is, if I'm not mistaken, the big EMP. Oh no, this is a unfortunately bad EMP that catches no one.
I mean, he made up for it. There's one later on.
So he got a big EMP later, yes.
But the thing that was interesting as well is there was that sort of slowness to act from Nova MS at the end. We actually saw that at the beginning as well. It was 43% before even the first fight actually kind of happened, because it worked, but Nova MS took a very long rotation.
And it's about the comps, right? They were having a bit of a rebuilding phase for the composition in terms of, okay, what do they actually want to play here? They had to swap a little bit later. And now very similar things where they're running on top of the point, eventually seeing what the offense from Greenleaves looks like, and now they have to change again as the point will shortly unlock. This time, if they can get there a little bit quicker, they can contest in time as well.
Greenleaves themselves are making some swaps here. They do have the slightly better positions. They are still first on the point, but this time Nova MS should be able to actually get boots on it before it flips. So it's already a lot of pressure on a Ting, though. In a bit too deep, methinks, and Burner gets, well, burned. Greenleaves looking pretty nice here. They made some good swaps that really helps them in that opening skirmish.
And this is now enough kills to get them this cap once again, give them an early lead in terms of ult charge and objective pressure, and it's another slow start for Nova MS. Slightly quicker than before, as we've noted, but at the same time, it's you're feeling similar beats. You're feeling similar things happening on Shrine, repeating itself on Sanctum, and if it keeps going this way, there's a real world where Greenleaves actually closes this one 2-0.
I think Nova MS also need to hurry up in a way. They have taken their time on a lot of these setups, a lot of these rotations, regrouping, and then you lose someone in the rotation and it just ends up wasting even more time. Nice biotic grenade as well to land on Nuns and Burner, just allows them to keep the pressure on, and with only the one healer as well being Burner himself, it's very easy for Greenleaves to confirm these kills. And once again, Nova MS now in full retreat. Might not lose any more members at least, but it's still so much time wasted.
I think Nova have just incorrectly predicted or incorrectly read Greenleaves opening compositions twice in a row, and in a world where Nova just run Mui on a McCree to start things off, they would have had a very good comp lineup. They've now put him onto a Sombra in and does have a Coalescence ready, but you're up against an EMP charge 50 on the Greenleaf side, 60% on the objective as well. They're in a position to snowball this one further into overtime.
It's not even just that. There's the Rocket Barrage, there's the Supercharger. There's a lot of ultimates that at the right time, in the right place, can be single ultimate fight winners potentially. It's a very early Supercharger though, and Cloud gets picked out by Mui. This is an opening 10 as well. What has gone wrong for Greenleaves?
6v4, we haven't seen the Valkyrie, we haven't seen the EMP or the Barrage yet. Those can still turn the fight around.
They do get one of those out, and it does allow them to find a Ting. The Rocket Barrage had to be committed for it, and Hoshimi goes down for his trouble in and able to keep most of the team alive thanks to the Coalescence. And I've got to say, a couple of very wacky members dying for Greenleaves and then really awkwardly committing to the fight.
And I think the table is flipped very quickly here, where previously it was Greenleaves getting opening trades or opening picks onto Nova during their rotation. This time around, it's kind of Greenleaves waiting for an EMP opportunity. They were definitely in position to win, but they couldn't take the fight.
This is where Nova MS look a bit more comfortable, pushing in very aggressively. Sonaro getting forced way back, and a Ting able to get a corner trap on Cloud. And Sonaro will go down there, and Nova MS fighting very far forward. This is effectively a spawn camp even, and it pays off too.
And they're going to get a lot of staggered kills here. You know they're very far ahead. That's the only real big punish here, but that's you know when they're really far ahead, when it's in throwing out the offensive biotic orb instead of the healing one. So that's when you know usually you would be healing instead, and they're offensive enough that they're actually going to lose a member for that. That's going to give Greenleaves the opportunity to re-push in with an EMP nearly available as well.
Both teams, in fact, EMP. I feel like whoever gets the better EMP is going to have really defined the fight.
They both got used.
Both commits, and Shailin's the first casualty. 10 stays alive just barely for such a long time. In fact, for all time,
Burner
Sound
lived.
barrier is nice, but Burner might not live for much longer, unfortunately. Coalescence is there as Mui finds his counterpart, but Green Leaves do have more ultimates they can start rolling into now. Might want to finish off Nuns here. Huge biotic grenade allows them to finish Nuns. It's big pressure on a Ting. Bump Nuns off the edge to fall to his death. The Ting has slept on the point. He's going to go down here for sure. Green Leaves re-grab and already at 92%.
And this cap is really important. They're now in a position where they can win right here. Nano is not quite available, but Nova MS, look, they need members on this point.
Burner does at least touch. Doesn't actually cost him his life. He slips out there by the skin of his pearly whites. In, not so lucky though. That grab's a little bit wacky from 10, but it does trap Shailin, and honestly, every pick counts, especially when there's no counter trades coming through. Now Nuns demaxed, and that's going to be it. Green Leaves already going to make Nova MS bleed, and in a very significant way, going to pick up Nepal here 2-0 overall, and Nova MS caught napping.
And I think this is where, okay, you're Nova MS, you've just lost the first map, you are now definitely in the series, not going for a 4-0, but what you are going for is you're going to play for, obviously, a match victory here, probably a 3-1 from here on out. However, this does kind of shake things up because you've already got a case where if you are testing the waters, you've identified now that Green Leaves coming in quite hot. You are also 2 out of 2 times incorrectly reading what the opening play or the opening comp is from Green Leaves, so that needs to be addressed as well. Basically, respect needs to be hugely given to Green Leaves for this opening map win. The big question is, does Green Leaves continue momentum, or is this going to be the only map win they get?
And that's a very fair question to ask, really, because look, it was good, but the other maps are a whole different beast. Indeed, Green Leaves, it's been on like every other game mode where we've started to see the cracks sort of appear, especially I want to mention this because the next map coming up is Paris, and we do see Bunker, we do talk about Bunker, and countering Bunker has kind of been a weakness of Green Leaves.
And I think at this point in time, despite being 1 down, you're not panicking just yet as Nova. You'll probably start panicking if you lose Paris as well. That would be, in my opinion, a much bigger upset in terms of the maps. It's certainly more of an upset than losing Nepal, where a lot of teams will go into that one just to kind of scope their opponents out early. And I expect Nova to come back in a strong way. If they don't do that, then something is very much going wrong with the team in this particular match, or at least in this week. But the Nova that we've seen in the past 2 weeks should be able to bounce back quite convincingly.
It is important to note, though, that they do actively need to bounce back. They can't just do nothing and expect to start taking it out. Like, they do need to sort of shift into gear a little bit. And I think one of the things, and I sort of mentioned it a bit on Nepal, like, they do seem to be acting very slowly, rotating especially quite slowly. We saw one passage of play from them that was actually their more standard aggression, which is where they held the point on
Shrine?
Sanctum? Sanctum. I had Sanctuary and Sanctum mixed up because that's the one on Busan. But anyway, they pushed really far forward, had a very valuable fight, and that's more what we tend to see out of this team, and I want to see that kind of be the status quo for them, not these really long, slow rotations.
At the same time, that was a fight they got quite heavily punished for. After losing, I believe it was a Ting at the time, you had to wait for this respawn, lose control of the point, lose any position you had on that hold, which if they kind of had this kind of not necessarily a spawn hole, but at least in the opening choke, that would have been very difficult for Green Leaves to push through. That would have given a lot more percentage points over to the side of Nova MS, and we would have potentially have seen a very different game. So you have a case of slowness in terms of getting the right comp into play, rotating into where you need to be, but then also then on the other side of the spectrum, you've gone from a 1 to 11, and you kind of need to dial back down somewhere in the middle. So, you know, not either extreme, just nice and comfortably in the mid.
And that's part of what we want to see. I mean, it's a bit of a different beast anyway on Assault, so that doesn't apply too much, but it will apply at least, I would say, more for point A offense, especially if they find themselves against the bunker, where if you dilly-dally too long, you might only get 2 pushes out of it, and if you fail them both, well, that's that. So I don't want to see them just kind of sitting for ages, making long, slow pushes, unless they work, right?
I don't think they're gonna be the type of team on Paris to really do those kind of things. I think once they find their right composition, they'll be much better off. And it's been more, at least to me, about getting the right matchup to start with, which when they're attacking, they'll have a bit more time to play. To get that on control, if you mistime that, you lose cap, and that's a much bigger deal. So a different game mode, there's a little bit more lenience. And also on the defense as well, picking the right composition will be equally as important.
Just a holographic wine glass. What's the point of that? Is it like
previous, just to show you this is what it is?
Like, I feel like I know what a glass of red wine looks like.
I don't know, man. Maybe in the future, that's not a normal thing.
Yeah, maybe it's rare.
Your privileged status about knowing what a wine glass looks like. But composition-wise, Nova MS going to be starting out on a dive, green leaves on a pseudo bunker. It is a Torb version, which I'm sure Mui would be very familiar with.
And I feel like Nova MS have ultimately read this correctly. Good hack on a Ting, though. He's going to lose a lot of health, actually. End up goes down, and Nuns did take a lot of pressure as well, so Nova MS do just have to back up for a second.
At least for attacking an assault map, it's less about reading, a little more about just adjusting and adapting. Once you see what it actually is, you have the time to work with. And okay, you lose a Ting really decently early. He's going to change to Winston now. What it really comes down to is how quickly you can set up these plays and how quickly you can rotate.
Nova do need to be wary of the pick potential. Especially out of 10. Good hack, though, on 10. Allows Ting to get a lot more pressure down this time. And 10 is just muscled way out of any useful sightlines.
Pocketed by Xerafi, though, and that kind of removes the Mercy for the time. And while that happens, it's a turret trade for Inen, which is not at all good for Nova.
Nun's eating a bio grenade as well, and Burn ends up going down, so no reses. Shailin picked, and suddenly Nova MS kind of hit a tipping point. They can't quite keep pushing in, and they end up losing a few members.
I think they were trying to really aggress onto the point quite quickly as well, and while that's happening, okay, you don't quite clean up the Widowmaker. That's the first big problem. The second is then the rest of the bunker catches up to you. Green Leaves just pick it up and go, drop it on the point itself. You see Scenario there trying to take down whoever's left on the side of Nova MS. And as soon as Burner goes down, that's really the push over. No more reses, your key healer is gone, and more than 1 minute has gone as well.
So Green Leaves, so far, 2 minutes off the clock already. But Nova MS making another pass of it. Mui gets drilled down, a little rough there.
Can't afford those types of deaths, and the problem is you're just slowing down your EMP charge rate. By now, you're really expecting, okay, by sometime in the second push, at the 2 minute mark, you need an EMP. If you don't have an EMP here yet, you are well below par. And you're at a stage where 50 already does have an EMP, and Green Leaves can snowball this defense further.
This is where ultimates are really going to start to hamper Nova MS. Supercharge will be a big one. The extra spam damage. Nice pulse bomb, though, onto Sonairo. Maybe he wasn't expecting that one out of Shailin, who just kind of walked forward and dropped it on him. They do potentially have a res, and they did also find Shailin. It's a counter trade, but you would definitely have rather had Sonairo up. Who won't get res, he'll come back the slow way, but the EMP is quite possibly going to keep the team in it for long enough. Nova MS are getting a lot of kills here, though. They didn't quite get the finish off on Nuns. Takes a long time to finally get it done, and Awashimi is kind of locked in this really awkward 1v1 against Shailin.
And I think right now you really need to see this EMP from Mui as Nova MS reinforce on the point itself.
That was very down to the wire, but a good bump off the edge. Oshimi's in the drink, and the Ting got bionated, got slept, got hacked, and if all of that can't bring down the raging Winston, well, unfortunately, there's not much that will, and Sonairo finally comes back into the fight. Doesn't use the supercharger, rightfully so, I'd say, and Nova MS will get that point.
And now this is where they're rewarded, actually, for losing Mui, which is a little bit of a weird thing to say, because rightfully, Nova MS probably would have lost that fight, and then having to re-push back in towards the overtime itself, they push now 4 minutes 40 onto B. Because the other members were able to pick up the pace, Shailin in particular, getting that opening pick onto Scenario. Now, Nova MS, if they can EMP consistently here, properly catching the right members, they can get at least a couple of ticks onto B.
This is where Mui can really shine, I suppose. Scenario does still at least have a supercharger, which can help. There's still a lot of very squishy targets on Nova MS that do go down quite quickly to the damage boost.
I want to talk about the spread here from Green Leaf because they're not in a position where you can easily EMP, so Nova have to pick their fight very carefully.
Well, they find it by just getting right on top of Scenario. That's a little bit of an awkward EMP from Mui.
I don't think it hit.
Yeah, still getting kills though. Green Leaves do get some counter trades and on the healers as well. So if 50, 10, and Xerafi can stay alive in this, they could still turn this around, especially with that EMP. The kill on Shailin, a Ting and Nuns taking pressure, no one to heal them. Green Leaves picking just the right members in that initial trade of kills to get Burner and Inen.
That was just a little disappointing. I mean, you needed to see the EMP hit somebody. Hitting 0 is just really poor, and this is now, I think, the second match in a row we've seen specifically on this part of the map, a Sombra which has hit nobody. And part of this is going to be, okay, you applaud the defensive team for spreading consistently and spreading well such that you're just not going to get a good EMP. But for Nova to sort of start reasonably well, even without the EMP, they've got a decent number of picks. To then not translate that into a single tick is a really sad way to then have to reset.
They do come in with a Primal Rage to self-destruct, which could hamper Green Leaves a little bit here.
And I think it's
made a big spot.
I think it's only really valuable because so far Green Leaves don't have any other ultimates, so any ultimate versus no ultimate is definitely going to be an advantage, but Nova, I don't think they have enough to actually counter.
Nano Boost on NN could be a difference maker, though, if they can get something out of that. Self-destruct doesn't do anything just yet. The Ting, not getting much done with the Primal Rage either. Is getting some pressure onto Sonaro, but not enough to really put him on the ropes just yet. They finally get a corner trap, but now a Nano Boost comes out from Clouds.
Sonaro's going to get shattered here, and that will be a big deal.
Yeah, NN has his Nano Boost, but hasn't had a chance to really commit it, or maybe chose not to, and instead Sonaro charges up his ultimate. I mean, they got exactly what you want when you've made that fresh swap onto Goats.
And I think if you are Nova MS, okay, first of all, you need to see dividends being paid out off the self-destruct. Somebody has to go down. You need to create that 6v5 immediately. Then on the Primal Rage, maybe you combo both together. Primal Rage, knock people in the line of sight of the self-destruct. That will give you something out of the two ultimates you've expended, because otherwise now you're going to be making some big changes. You probably wanted to make these changes, but you are very far behind. It is already an Earth Shatter available. It is EMP, Rally available, and a Graviton Surge up soon, while Nuns and a Ting still fine behind the path.
Nice and preemptive on that EMP as well. I do like that from 50, but unfortunately doesn't result in any kills, and they committed a Earth Shatter into that as well. So now Xeraphia is going to have to counter out this EMP with that sound barrier. Does get a chance to commit it, but Sonaro's eating too much pressure. Nice biotic grenade, though. If they could follow up on that, they're still in the business, but unfortunately they cannot, and 10 just shy of a grab. Needs it very soon, and they kind of want Sonaro back in to help follow up on it. Oshimi's going to go down in the interim. Shylin does get taken out, but they can't really get much damage into all those grabbed up members. Do have the respawn advantage, though, so could still kind of break it here.
We need to see them really buy into that, because they're starting to lose a few members now, a few too many members, as Burner's about to get the sound barrier as well. That should push them further ahead.
They've already got 2 ticks as well. Green Leaves do actually get a moment of respite to maybe get these members back in the fight, but the sound barrier keeps Nova MS plenty healthy in spite of the biotic grenade, so see what they can get done. It's just 2 juiced up Reinhardts swinging away at each other.
Well, both have shatters.
Finding Movie is really big. Shatter just kind of out to the side. No ability to follow up on it. Ting goes down. Huge EMP out from 50. Shatter comes out from Sonaro as well. And they're just barely going to finish off these members. 2 ticks for Nova MS, but it's been 2 fights and a tick apiece. It's not enough.
And I think that last fight just really came down to a game of inches. You had both EMPs coming online at roughly the same time. Both Earth Shatters coming online at roughly the same time. Whoever was going to get the slightly better connection was going to get the result that they were looking for. The good news for Nova is they do go into the final engagement slightly ahead of their counterparts. You have Grav nearly online, EMP nearly online, and for Nova, if this isn't the push, they're not going to be able to cap it all. Green Leaves, if they can just live long enough, get that sound barrier, they should be fine.
50 looking to harass a little bit on the rotation. Stun on Mui, that's huge! No EMP now, and a numbers advantage, but good catch on Sonaro. That means the Grav can come in, and they are on the point while Green Leaves are not. So just barely dead. That could have very quickly become a disaster for Nova MS, but they executed just cleanly enough.
And I think this is where just a bit of
0.8 of a second.
This is just a little bit of a weird one for Green Leaves to handle, because you have your tank members contesting the points. That's their job, but they get grabbed off the point itself, just slightly off the mark, and the supports are thinking their understanding is that the tanks were meant to be contesting, but without realizing that the Grav actually had pulled the tanks off, everyone stepped off at the same time, and sadly that means it's not going to be a contest.
That's what 50 was waiting for. I see. That's clever, actually. Nice work by 50 to get back there. Spot where Movie was going to place the translocator.
That being said, we do also get to see the final moments of how this sort of ended up falling here. Well, you saw it anyway. You just
saw some of the moments.
50 was trying to get back onto the point itself. It's like, guys,
hello. But I mean, the other thing as well that one must say is that was only made possible by the fact that Nova MS did have the 2 ticks prior to that, and we're already at about 72% on that particular push when that Grav came out. So it also just happened very quickly, too quickly for a support to respond. If they hadn't have had the second tick there probably would have been at least someone from Green Leaves who could have touched them.
Exactly. Well, the thing is there's just so many small details once again, because in this kind of fight, I think the way it ends up going, Green Leaves probably should have completed the hold on to B, but also Nova had such a decent snowball early on. It was surprising they didn't get an earlier tick, so possibly this could have been an even earlier cap by Nova, but it's focused on the defense now. It's going to be Mui on the Ashe, have a pharmacy as well. It's a very DPS-heavy bunker, if anything.
Green Leaves didn't quite get the opening frag on the Widowmaker, decide they value the spam more. Can't say I disagree.
What's interesting about this is usually Mui would actually be on a Torbjorn, but with him on the Ashe instead, it's going to put a lot more pressure onto Hashimi.
Green Leaves. And then trying to make their way forwards. Not getting a lot done just yet. Nice.
Burner hack is big.
That's a really nice one from 50. And now Cloud is getting the finishing shot on Shailin. They just start eating too much pressure. When you don't have the Mercy in pocket, that's what happens.
And you can just play patiently here because there's no rares available. 2 members respawning. Nova MS are down to 4. You play the 6v4. You take the space away. Start capping this point.
They can just sit pretty on here. Force Nova MS to come out of hiding. Nuns on the reverse angle. They're nearly got the drop on Sonaro. They do find Cloud, which is a potential way in.
So this is where, okay, Nova MS are about to respawn. They've had full reinforcements come in. You have the space, but you need to convert a few more kills. You have to keep the pressure up if you actually want to cap.
Shailin coming back in on Tracers, like the greatest hits. Be nice to see that one again, but Green Leaves have still traded relatively evenly. Moving low, they can't really pressure the point. He goes down, and now they just have to run for it. It's going to be tough.
Shailin hacked.
Has a nano boost, so he does still do a lot of damage, and that is paying off for them somewhat, but struggling to get that last shot onto Hoshimi, who does have a rocket barrage, and Shailin's down. That's probably going to be the breaking point.
Just couldn't quite stem the tide. I mean, they just kept losing members, and by the time they had 6, another person went down. So question now needs to be asked, how fast can Green Leaves push in, use this EMP? Nuns doesn't quite have one yet. Mui nearly has Bob available, but EMP will shut down Bob as well. So unfortunately not going to be the most valuable ultimate.
Because he is made of electronics. That's how EMPs work. Over MS. I mean, you can tell they kind of just want to toss out the Bob and then maybe go for a swap. Shailin's already down.
Can't wait too long.
They've waited way too long as it is. EMP is nice. This is where they want to commit the Bob, but Rocket Barrage from Hashimi starts trading some back, and they've still got an EMP of their own. Here's Bob now finally out on the point, and they weren't able to outweight the EMP, so 50 does have a potential golden opportunity. Pulse Bomb around the back from Shailin.
50's gone.
Doesn't find its mark. They do start picking them up, though. The Bob starts to pull its weight, and yeah, 50. Way out of there.
You can see the situation unfolding is a bit of a game of chicken here. Okay, you don't want to use the Bob before the EMP. You also don't want to use the EMP for the Bob. So 50 and Mui just kind of staring each other off. Who's going to pull the trigger first? Who's going to be coloring who here? Eventually, Mui's like, I can't afford to wait any longer. It pulls the Bob out there. 50 takes too much damage, has to translocate out. Then he can't now count. He cannot now counter this Bob. He cannot do anything about this fight. And unfortunately, Green Leaves, they fail the snowball push.
Could still pick up a win on this one. They have the right ultimates. EMP in itself can be huge, and if not, then you've still got Nano Boost to help maybe
spotted.
Sonairo. 50 needs a chance to get this out. It's a little bit dicey. They haven't really got the value they wanted out of the EMP.
King's in a lot of trouble.
Low Shailin, low Nuns, but Hoshimi's the first casualty. It's traded, but trades do kind of favor defense. They do pick up a second tick, though, so it's not all for naught, but they are getting routed and forced off the point here.
I think 2 ticks is valuable, though, because that's 2 attempts, 2 ticks. Every single time they've got a little bit of progress, and we noted how important having both ticks was for Nova MS on their final push. So Green Leaves can kind of apply that same scenario where if they really pressure this point, Nova MS are going to be forced to respond. We need to see value coming out from Nuns' EMP, more than Mui's EMP so far, who is now on the Zarya, attempting to get his next Graviton Surge up. Ating's not that far away as well. Will probably receive a nano boost from teammate Inen, so expecting him to also have a Shadow available this fight.
A lot more time for Green Leaves as well. Stun on Nuns doesn't go down. That's a huge bite of grenade. I don't know if they can quite follow up on it, though, with that EMP there, just slowing them down. Green Leaves are going to decide to take the retreat.
EMP for a Bionade is not a good trade for Nova, unfortunately, and one team still has an Earth Shadow available and a Nano to boot as well, but it's not an easy place for Nova to defend. 50 is recharging this EMP very rapidly. Cloud is going to have a Nano soon. Popping down on Sonaro could also get him another Shadow.
Green Leaves just taking their time. And as I said, they do have time. Nova MS got 2 ticks and 2 pushes, but at 45 seconds after that, this is already looking decent. Pressure's out. Huge Shadow, though, from Ating. The Nano Boost on Sonaro. He gets charged up against the wall. Does get saved by the bubble there, but he's now able to retreat to what is left of his team. And Nova MS just kind of absorbed that and punched back with a massive haymaker.
And honestly, Cloud, he put the first shot in there because the bio nade lands on 2 members of Ting. One of them, he got put so low. If the Ting doesn't escape out of there, if he doesn't climb up onto that little ridge, he probably dies. If he dies, there's no shatter. If there's no shatter, Nova don't save the fight, then there's only one tick. Greenleaf's probably capped. So very important that that line of play ended up succeeding for Nova, who still have ults to defend.
It's also the second nano boost out from Cloud that hasn't got much more value than just charging up Sonaro's Shadow. So that needs to pay off for them now, if nothing else. Burner looking for the setup. EMP out from 50, but Xeraph's already down. Shylin, though,
Ting's in trouble.
Low, but this is still just back and forth. And as we always say, trades will eventually favor the defender. Looking to finish off Mui, who does have a grab. Unfortunately, 10 zone grab, not the hottest. They do find nuns. Mui throws out his grab. He's low.
There's no damage.
Finish him off. Able to catch him, just barely clipping him with the fire strike. And suddenly Greenleaf's just getting the slightly better end of the later part of the fight. Another good shatter out from a Ting. They will again find Xeraphi, but again, it's not enough. And again, the 2/3 means that the timing is too lean for the defender, and we go to time back.
And this is where using the nano on Sonaro to get the Earth Shatter actually does pay out some nice dividends as well, because having the Shadow when a Ting doesn't quite have one yet, having the capability to say, okay, this is a win condition in and of itself. If we land this ability, we can just win. We're going to get a decent amount of picks here. A Ting goes down super early there. You see the grabs coming through. It was even trades up until the fact that both grabs were used. Greenleaf's got way more done with their one. Moby used this one a little bit too late. Not enough damage. It was him and about 1 or 2 members alive.
Yeah.
One of them was Burner. Your Lucio is not going to be your main damage dealer in that. Mui's already chunked down. He can't really go into the thick of the grab himself, so no one can follow up on this. And so for Nova, that's just a really, really sad place to be. 2:55 versus 1 minute. That is nearly a 3 times time different for Greenleafs in terms of an advantage.
This is where I'm starting to get flashbacks to the series just being actually between Cyclone Coupling and Global Esports. Similar thing. Global Esports 1 minute in the time bank, and Cyclone Coupling a little bit more, just enough more that they can get a full push on to this point. And Greenleafs have even more than that for what it's worth. So Nova MS already lean for time, and they still need to speed up their overall passage of play anyway.
And for Nova, they have to, first of all, get decent success here. You're expecting if they can get a tick or 2, that is a winnable position. If they don't get a single tick, they're probably going to lose this entire map, and it's not looking favorable. They have to be fast. I think that's key, because speed has been a bit of an issue, and, well, time is not on their side.
One good pick could do it, though. Really on either side. It's already 20 seconds gone. It's not really much that Nova MS could do about that, though. That's just getting out of the gates and getting a position. But now, rounding that 30-second mark, this is where things get down to the wire.
And you're looking at, okay, what kind of map pressure do you have here? You're running double flank. Shylin hacked out early is a bit of a bad news.
Oshimi really getting aggressive. They're able to finish off Shylin, and that could be that 1 pick. That's now 2 picks, less than 20 seconds. Rounding the bend of 15. Those respawners will not get back here before overtime begins.
And you're not going to be able to res them either, so now Burner has to absolutely stay alive. If Burner dies, this push may be over.
And then actually changing again. Slows down as coming back, but he will come back on the Soldier, which could just be enough here.
Eyes on 50, who does have nearly an EMP available that can shut the door.
It's a huge biter grenade onto a Ting. Hoshimi's target gets spotted out. A Ting super low. One more shot would do it. Just trying to push on. They do find it. No one's really on the point right now. Nova MS is have to start piling bodies on, and those bodies go straight into the EMP of 50. It is trades, though. Nova MS starting to pick up a few. Can Sonaro keep them in? Burner is still
this could be a cap.
well, and I think this will be a cap. Burner goes Battle Mercy on 10 at the end there, and Nova pull that one out of nowhere.
And Burner actually gets 2 kills. During the Valkyrie, he gets 2 of those 6 kills that eventually get this cap over the line, and such a big deal to get this cap, because now you're starting to feel like, okay, it doesn't matter if Nova don't get anything done on B. The job has been completed. Just getting a full cap on A now gives them agency to actually win the entire map. Anything they get on B now is a big bonus.
Certainly has opened the door where previously it was on the cusp of being closed. Greenleafs don't exactly have a lot here, but the nano boost, the supercharger, it could be just enough. They stick though onto Hoshimi. Shylin again just flexing.
Wow.
That's Mui picking one up as well with the Dragon Strike. The Nano Boost is there onto Sonaro, who's trying to pump damage out. If they even get a third here, it's even better. Cloud finds one. Trades do favor Green Leaves, but they need to get all these kills. They need to really rebuff Nova, hack on a Ting, but where's the pressure? They finally finish him off with the surround, and Xerapi goes forward to find Nuns. They won't quite get that third there, Nova MS, but man, they made it interesting.
And I think the Supercharger right towards the end there actually doing a lot of work for Green Leaves. At the same time, a Bionade was landed with Shylin, so he can't participate in that combat for a long while. And this just means Nova don't have key players, don't have key damage dealers where they need to be in order to try and get this last few picks out of the way, such that they can maybe get a couple of ticks onto B. But as was mentioned, B doesn't matter at this point. They could have, honestly, they could have sat in spawn after capping A, let the time expire. Doesn't make a difference at this stage. Obviously, you're going to try and go for it, but what is really important is 255 for Green Leaves may actually not be enough to fully, completely cap out A. And I say that only because it takes a while to get past a bunker unless Nova makes some really big mistakes. And if it was to get one tick, you'd say, okay, 255 gets one tick onto a bunker defense A. Absolutely doable. They probably would. To get 3 ticks is 3 times as many, and unfortunately, that may just make the difference.
This ultimately feels like a map that right now could go any way. And when I say any way, that means could be a win for Nova MS if they get the hold, could be a win for Green Leaves if they're able to just make the most of what would be a total 3.5 minutes if they cap A. Or it could just go to a draw. I feel like that's maybe even the most likely result. I
also think here, okay, if Shylin dies, he comes back as Tracer. That's actually not a big loss. He is fragging out on Tracer so far on this map. Expect him to continue to do so. Innen, we know, is a very well-known factor on the Ana, so the individual playmaking of Nova can still just rescue them in various situations where you expect them to lose.
Green Leaves, they don't want to waste too much time here, but they do also need to be patient. They don't just want to throw this away by getting too fast.
You don't want to feed ults over to Nova, but you also need to be wary of the time they have. 3 times as much time as Nova did, which means they can afford a couple more mistakes, can afford to be slightly more patient.
Shots on Shylin, that's a good opener. The Raze, oh, 10 finds Burner. That's massive. And it was partially because he started channeling the Raze while still airborne,
this might be over
rather
now.
than going to ground before that. And this is a huge time save for Green Leaves as well, because they get this in the early parts of the first push. They'll have a good 2.5 minutes at this rate to finish B. Just even getting 1/3 on B actually is all they need.
Okay, well, so Nova MS, the nightmare scenario came true, said, look, they would have to make some big mistakes. They did do that. Shylin goes down. Burner decides to sacrifice himself as well. If Shylin comes back as a Tracer, not the end of the world. They can still defend. That's not the world we live in, though. 1 tick for Green Leaves is absolutely doable, and Nova MS are going into the play that they will try and get them the draw. You saw as soon as they started losing A, they were moving over to Brigidas or moving over to other picks that will help them get B secured. Shylin actually back on a Tracer.
I do like this from Green Leaves, though, making the swap. They're close to an EMP. They're close to a Nano Boost. And they're already putting pressure on the point. Nova MS just have to walk for it. Nice sleep on 10. Hack on a Ting, though. This could go either way. It's really on a knife's edge here right now. Sonaro super.
He lives.
The Nano Boost is in. Now he can push forward. And EMP will be a factor for 50. Finds a lot of members with it, too. And there's no good defense. Mui's already down. They don't have an answer here. They don't even have ults of their own. Sonaro's taking some pressure, though. And they haven't quite found these extra kills. Nice Nano onto a Ting. Charge in from Sonaro is actually a charge out and away from the point. Nova MS managed to hold on through what was honestly one of the toughest defenses you can face.
That's just batter up for a Ting right now. Hitting a couple of home runs there, and for Nova, it's just 1 step closer to completing this draw. 1 minute and 12 remaining. You have to really feel for Green Leaves here. They can still do this. 1 tick is more than doable with their own Earthshatter coming up online. They will have to contest with the Tings first. Other ultimates are roughly even, nothing to really write home about. But as we hit that overtime, and we still have to be aware of respawn advantages for Nova, Green Leaves still have a lot of work ahead of them.
Nova MS could still do it. This is now last push here, probably for Green Leaves. Nice shatter.
Just on Sonaro.
Sonaro's going to get back up. No, not for long enough to get his own shatter off. Green Leaves now, this is their last push. They could actually fall back, maybe try wait for Sonaro. They do, and they barely get out alive.
Really important because you need to have that shatter. You need to have something. Hashimi, okay, resetting. It's a couple more seconds. Sonaro is back up alive now. Green Leaves will go in for the final push, and This time it's a lot more difficult to say who will come out alive because there's more ultimates on both sides. Grabs are coming online now. Nun's about to have his. Mui is ever so slightly further ahead onto EMP, which could also make difference.
No translocator. 50's done it again. Now Mui's already down. 50 close to an EMP. What they need, though, I think, is Xerath's sound barrier. That could be a big factor here, especially if Nuns is able to get this grab. Shadow was there first. Can they get the EMP? They can. Nuns will still be able to grab, though, and they don't have a good answer. Burner goes down. Those, they've still done a lot of work. That's huge. 3-man bio grenade. Massive EMP. They only get the 1 member for now. 10's grab is there, but nobody can deal the damage. It's just a fraction of a hair too late. 10 can't quite do it himself, I don't think. And those respawns are ever so slightly closer, and nano boost on Shylin just to keep him alive, just to keep him dealing damage. And they're so close, but they will fall just shy. It's a draw, though, so it's still not smooth sailing for Nova MS.
It's certainly not the case, and I think for Green Leaves, they will be reasonably disappointed they didn't finish the map here because they were in such a great position to do so. A 2-0 would be such an amazing position for them to be in. In fact, that would be a position where now Nova have to reverse sweep, but there is still a world where, to be fair, because the draw exists, Nova actually still have to reverse sweep by winning the next 2 maps in a row. But at the same time, again, Green Leaves 1 tick.
It's match point
2 minutes and 30 seconds to be able to get 1 tick, and they just couldn't quite get there. And Nova, they could have defended. A could have gone so much better for them, but they threw it out the window. It's really disappointing to see.
I suppose on B, maybe for as much as, you know, you can see the shortcomings of their A defense. In fact, let's say defenses, because they did give both of them up eventually. That B defense in the time bank, though, is Nova showing their caliber.
Yeah.
And it feels really sad to say that's the only time we've really seen it in the course of the series, with the few exceptions, I'd say, of Shylin really showing up, especially on the Tracer. But like on that B defense, that was we were really seeing what Inen is capable of on the Ana, what Ating is capable of on the Reinhardt. We were seeing a lot more members firing on all cylinders, and you see the difference it makes, but you just got to ask, where's that been the rest of the series?
Well, I think when they do get the ball rolling, and they have been able to do that at several points, you know, on both offense and defense, it's taken a while to get there. But once they're warmed up, it seems like they were able to kind of tap into that gameplay a little bit. It's more so that they never really completed the hold onto B, and then they kind of botched the A defense and time bank, and then made up for it by getting the draw at least, so they're not in an even worse place than they're currently in. It's still not a great place to be. I'm still kind of waiting for the Nova MS of the last 2 weeks to show up today.
Yeah.
But I do have to also compliment Green Leaves now for really bringing this match to, first of all, match point for themselves, but kind of just showing up versus what would be otherwise a very daunting opponent. So a lot to look forward to still. It's
still match point for Green Leaves.
Exactly. I think Nova's still got a lot of work ahead of them still, but we are going to take a bit of a break now. We'll reach the halfway point, and when we come back, we'll be resolving the series here, concluding Green Leaves versus Nova MS. Who comes out on top? Find out after this.